Hello, everyone. Welcome to Art & Co.'s live event, Revealing COVID-19 Stories. This is a very special gathering and a chance for you to learn about so many different aspects of what's happening in the art world and what's happening with COVID-19. We're live right now on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Twitter. Please hit share right now so your friends and family around the world can join us. We have an all-star lineup. You'll be meeting Tim Draper, the founder of Draper Associates. You will meet artists like Hannah Rose Thomas and Kate Dunn. You'll meet art lovers and art organizers, art experts from around the world. We'll get a chance to say hello to Katie Wikram Singh and Evelina Choeva and Lorraine, another artist. Please stay tuned. We're going to start in just a minute. Please tag your friends and please hit share right now. You can learn more about the auction that this is part of by going to artandco.net. artandco.net. This live video session will discuss the 5 Ds of the COVID-19 crisis: disease, death, depression, domestic violence, and disproportionality for ethnic minorities. The idea here is for us to talk about what we can learn from this crisis and where we go all together. The artwork that's available at the auction has an aggregate value of 1.2 million pounds, about $1.5 million in dollars, $1.5 million, with prices ranging from $1,000 to 24,000 pounds. We have multiple lots and a chance for you to learn so much and support multiple charities. So you will get a chance to help some artists, help some charities, and do something very special at this time. The auction ends in 48 hours from now. If you're all ready for our presentation, we are now going to bring you the founder and CEO of Premfina and the founder and CEO of Art & Co. Please welcome, in just a minute, Bandeep Singh Ranga.
Hi, thanks so much for the great intro there. You know, few things are as powerful as an idea. And as we got hit by the COVID pandemic and we sat at home in London, I just thought it could not be possible that we have to sit back passively and look at the fact that small idea back at the end of March kind of blossomed into a full-blown world's largest auction fundraising for COVID. So we are here now with the preeminent fundraiser for charities across the world, live from London, with people joining from San Francisco to Sofia. So with that in mind, please stay with us for the next 1.5 hours. We have lots of great speakers, starting with Tim Draper, Silicon Valley's top investor, an early investor from 2000. When I first met him over a chance meeting at dinner, he's known for spotting opportunities early, including household names that you'll recognize like Skype, Tesla, Twitter, maybe not household, but certainly spacehold like SpaceX. And we're fortunate to have him as a shareholder in my company, Premfina, as well. Welcome, Tim Draper.
Terrific. Well, thanks for having me, Bandeep. I am a big art lover from way back, and I love what you're doing here. I think it's really important that that the artists get out there, because this is a restart time. This is one of those times where the world sort of has to be stuck in place. And then, and during that time, people start doing things. They start trying new things, and then they start thinking about what the world could be like in the future, which is why I love entrepreneurs, because they actually lead us to that future. But artists inspire those entrepreneurs, and so artists are going to make a big impact on where what direction do we head as we go forward. I feel that there are two worlds. There's a dystopian world and a utopian world, and we're right at the fork in that road. We're right between whether we go dystopian or utopian. I believe that governments today are in some ways using this as a way of controlling their people. You have to stay in place. You have to wear a mask. You have to do all these things. Turn around 3 times before you eat your breakfast. Whatever it is, they're forcing people to be in place. That's fine during the pandemic. It's fine to understand. Look, we got to cure the pandemic and get it out of our way. But then we have a choice. Do we want government control or do we want freedom for people? And freedom has been so much more successful throughout history than government control. I mean, just think the difference between Soviet Russia and the United States. The United States was free. Soviet Russia was completely controlled. Think of difference between Hong Kong and communist China. Hong Kong was huge, was totally free, became this great, huge success. Communist China was a disaster. Eastern Europe versus Western Europe. Eastern Europe was a disaster. Western Europe, more free, became a great successful place to be. We want that freedom when we get out of this pandemic. And I think you artists and people who are inspiring people with art are going to be able to drive that direction where we can get freedom, where we can be back to being free. I also think there's one other thing. Sorry, I'm going on a bit.
No problem, all yours.
But there's that when we're global, we are so much happier, wealthier. We eat better. We live better. Everything is better, and I'll explain why I think that. Than when we're isolated and tribal. Let's say I have a house and Bandeep has a farm. And we don't trade with each other, then he dies of exposure and I die of starvation. But if we trade with each other, we both end up better off. And that's true. Multiply that by the 8 billion people around the planet, and we are all so much better off by allowing these deals freely to happen. The trade between one country and another should not be shut down because of some politician. Trade should be free and open, and we should be able to be a decentralized world. And I think that's coming, and there are these new technologies that are allowing it to come. But we cannot let these tribal governments stop us from doing that. So with that, Bandeep, you got any questions for me?
Yeah, we got a few there. It was a great intro, great overview, and I love your dystopian, utopian perspectives on the way the world could go. We had this challenge, right? So we weren't a charity. We said, let's go raise money. Let's do something good for the world. We've got 7 charities treating illness, mental health, domestic violence, and the disproportionality of ethnic minorities being affected. One of the things we face in the art world, which is worth $70 billion and more, is a lot of fake and counterfeit stuff out there. And as you create this future world where you can have trading between buyers and sellers, what role do you see blockchain playing for provenance on artwork and ensuring fake stuff doesn't get in, and also creating fractional ownership via tokenization? Your views on that will be profound.
This is a really exciting time. All these industries of the world are being transformed because of Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, and then all the artificial intelligence and surveillance that can go on. And it's going to change some of the biggest industries in the world. And the art world is going to change in a big way, because now you can validate art. You can apply art to the blockchain. You can say, this is the art. That art has this owner. And then that owner can fractionalize and become a part of where there are many other potential owners. And so you can own art, but then not display it. So I think art is going to go the way, because we have this new blockchain and it keeps perfect records of who owns what and where the money goes. You have an opportunity to validate art, to make sure that this is the real thing, and here's the blockchain that proves it. And that blockchain says that this is the owner, and now it's been changed, the hands have been changed to this owner, and now that owner decided to tokenize it so hundreds of people could own it. And those owners can then say, okay, well, whoever holds the art puts it up on their wall, they rent it from the owners. And that can actually start to operate sort of the way real estate is going with blockchain and smart contracts and tokenization, is that let's say somebody buys real estate buys a house, and then they rent it out. And then what happens is you tokenize the house, and you have 5 owners now, and they all own it equally. Now that owner, that renter is now paying to those 5 owners. Well, what if one of the owners wants to move into that house? They throw out the renter. That owner is now both paying rent and receiving rent as a token holder. And that's the new way real estate's starting to operate. Well, the same thing's potentially happening with art, where the separation of who displays it, who gets to display the art, how it's insured, and who owns the art can actually be they can be 3 separate pieces, and they can all be tied to this tokenization. And I am very excited about it. So you would buy a piece of art in Bitcoin, you can tokenize that art, you own it. Then you say, okay, now I'm selling pieces of this art to 50 other people. And those 50 people all now own 1/50th of the art. Well, there is the appreciation of that art, and then there's the ongoing rental of that art. So there are 2 pieces of revenue that can come from that art. And I think that this is the way it's going to operate, and that art may move from place to place, and the cost of moving, the cost of insuring, all of that is going to have to be a burden of all the owners, or maybe a management organization. But I think that this is a wonderful way for art to evolve. You could say, hey, well, when I'm having my party, I want that Van Gogh in my living room. And then the rest of the time, I'm happy to have it be in a museum or with some of the other owners or whatever. Art can go in a lot of different ways. So,
Tim, we can see the tokenization of art. We can see the real-time pricing. We can see it's like any other real estate, like asset, right? Capital appreciation and yield. So you said you're a fan of art. We see some pieces behind you. Any of those that you might want to tokenize as we go? What's behind you? We're curious.
Oh, I can't tokenize these. I want that Superman on the street. Actually, there are some here that could be tokenized. I have to turn my. You see, I got a Michael Scoggins there.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that fun? I got another Michael Scoggins over here, which I commissioned him to do.
Risk worldwide.
Yeah, we got a risk map, a risk board there, and then I got the $100 Monopoly bill. I thought was great because those are 2 games I played a lot when I was younger, and so it's been kind of fun. We also have. I wish I could. I can't take you all the way around the house because there's some really fun things. We have 2 feet that look like an alien came and head first and went right through our yard.
Okay, did we lose Tim, or is that just me? Little technical glitch there, I think, perhaps.
Are famous.
Here we go.
sculptor. And then we have some very fun and unusual and weird art. We love art, and it does inspire us.
Well, I've been to university, Tim, and I've obviously learned this blockchain intensive course that you had there. Is enough being done to teach people about art, tokenization? And do you think there's some learning for us that we can use in hopefully never happening, but should we have another global crisis like a pandemic? Because I don't think we were very well prepared for this one.
Well, I think artists have a way of reaching people, whether they're musicians or painters or sculptors or actors or producers. They have the ability to reach people's hearts and get them thinking about what the world could look like, and they can both inspire us to create a better world for everybody, or they can warn us about horrible things that could potentially happen. And we can do both. We can prepare for the worst, and we can drive for the best. And I think a lot of that will have to do with what artists do. Artists are a big part of society. They really do. I'm constantly inspired by art. I'm constantly. My wife was an art history major, so we went through and had we go to museums whenever we're in a new city, and we have we really love what art can do, and where artists have inspired history. I mean, they've gotten people to do things that they wouldn't have ordinarily done, and those people have done great things. So yeah, art, man, it's great stuff. I'm a painter too. I should probably.
We should show you some of your art if you can show it.
Yeah, I did. I'm not sure I can.
You're gonna walk around.
I think it would take too long. I don't want to do that. But I did do. I created a palette. I walked the beach. I picked up a bunch of colorful shells, and I created a palette of those shells. And I made and I arranged them and glued them in the form of my mother. And it was a beautiful. Came out incredibly well. But the glue I used ended up not being so good, so that when they finally put it up on the wall, all the shells came down. So sometimes art is only there for a moment. So I've actually written poems that I burned on the spot as for emphasis. Sometimes you just want the art to be there and then be gone. So although that wasn't the intention with my mom's painting, my mom's piece of art. But then I learned to paint when my wife gave me painting lessons, and I came every Sunday. An artist came over and taught like the whole neighborhood how to paint. And we'd invite anybody in who wanted to join us. And so each Sunday we'd all, get out our canvases and our paints and we'd do some sort of art. And it was funny because I could never draw inside the lines. Never had that ability. And then when they showed me that I could actually paint with acrylics, you can paint over something. All of a sudden I went, oh my God, I can do this.
I'm a genius. You're a bit of a Burning Man burner in there, you Tim, somewhere. I sense that from the.
I did go to Burning Man once,
yeah.
And I had a wonderful time. And I love that you come with something. What I came with was a drawing pad and a pencil, charcoal, something. And I told people I would draw their soul. So I had people, and then I said, okay, I'm going to draw your soul. I'd show it to them. That was my Burning. That's what I brought to Burning Man. I know that you're supposed to bring something to give to the group. There's no exchange rate So it's just whatever you bring, that's what you do. So I drew people's souls.
That's fantastic. If your piece of art wasn't as personal as being it is for your mother, I would have asked you to see if you could post it in Art & Co. and help some charities, but we'll probably save that because it's a deeply personal one. Of course, we don't want to offend your family. But if you do decide to do it again, we're more than up for taking art from you and using it.
Oh, hey, I would love to do that. I would love to do that. You commission me, you tell me what actually don't tell me what I should paint. I will go paint something that is inspirational for the next generation, for the people who who now have this choice, this fork in the road. Maybe it'll be a fork. I'm thinking about this.
I can see that dystopia.
Already spinning for this. So the next time you throw this thing, Bandeep, you give me a month warning, and I'll come through with something.
You got it. It's recorded now. It's live and direct. The whole world knows it's going to be a piece of art. So we're going to take you up on it. It's going to be fantastic. Now, I've got to ask you, when I was there some time ago, you're a big believer in the blockchain revolution and this new tokenization and the virtualization, digitization of non-fiat currencies through cryptocurrency. You had said very famously and very accurately that Bitcoin would go to $10,000 in 2017, which it did despite all the critics. And you said that back in 2014. And you told me it's going to go to $250K in 2022, and that was a couple of years ago. Are you still holding to that? Do you think it's going to go up or lower?
Oh, yeah. And I still have my Bitcoin tie on. Same one. It was given to me by the investment club at the Amador Valley High School when I went and spoke there. Yes, absolutely. Bitcoin's just a better currency. I mean, we know we didn't really understand this, and I think it may have accelerated the use of Bitcoin. I know the pandemic has, but the fact that our government became just like those third world governments and printed $9 trillion. Boom, $9 trillion. All of a sudden, your dollar, the one you had before, has been devalued by about 30%. That is what happens in Argentina every year. That's what happens in Nigeria. In Nigeria, it's 50% a year. In Venezuela, it's just like the currency just falls to 2% each year, or at least it has during this current socialist government they have. This is one of those times where I didn't realize we would have a pandemic. I didn't realize that our politicians would print money. But that will accelerate the interest in Bitcoin. It already has. The number of Bitcoin wallets is going through the roof. If you don't have a Bitcoin wallet yet, what are you thinking? We have a currency. It's better. It's global. It's open. It's transparent. It cannot be changed. It keeps a perfect record. It's just a better currency. Why would you use a currency that is subject to the whims of some political force? Why would you use that if you've got a currency where you know there are only going to be 21 million of these, which means that there will be 21 million times 3 billion Satoshis or something, or times 1 billion, times 1 trillion Satoshis. Because what is 800 billion? So people get confused. They say only 21 million. How can you do business? Well, it goes 0.0000000, and so you can be working with fractions of pennies when you operate with Bitcoin. You can down the road, you know how no one really trusts the way people pay them from the movie industry or the music industry. I know there are probably some artists out there that are musicians and movie producers. Using Bitcoin and a smart contract, the whole thing could be done on a smart contract where it didn't go through the sort of greedy hands of the executive producer. It would just, it flows immediately to the wallets of all the people who had a hand in making the movie. So like in Star Wars, they have 15,000 names that come down that are a part of making a Star Wars movie. Well, those 15,000 people each have to get some check, like on a monthly or quarterly basis, and it costs Lucasfilm $7 to send each of those out. I've received a check like this from my work with my sister movies, and it comes in, it's a check that costs them $7 to send, and I get a check for 25 cents. So they're totally wasting all of that money, and I don't believe that 25 cents is the right amount for me, based on whatever I did. And but it's out of our control. It would be in all of our control. We'd all see it on the blockchain. We'd all know if people use Bitcoin and just used a bunch of Bitcoin wallets, so that every time somebody went to that movie and paid $20, that $20 would be spread amongst all of the people involved in that movie, according to the contract, the smart contract they have. That's a much better way to operate. And getting money overseas is so much easier. And like if you have somebody working for you overseas, so easy to get it over there in Bitcoin. I've had so many times where people said, God, I don't know, we can't get money out to you, and I don't know how it's going to work, or I can't pay for these books unless you somehow have a Nigerian bank account. Well, now I say, well, here's some Bitcoin. Let me buy the books. Or here, you guys owe me some renminbi, and you can't get money out of China. Here, send me some Bitcoin. Yeah. This is the future. It's so clear, and all the Bitcoin is valued at something like 100, 200 billion, something like that. Well, there is about 100 trillion in currency out there. So there is the possibility to go 1,000 times up from wherever we are, and in value of a Bitcoin.
Right.
So
without government debt associated and quantitative easing, right? So
yeah, and as it spreads, that's what will happen.
Yeah. Tim, I know you're pressed for time. We squeezed some precious time out of you. Any parting words on philanthropy and charitable stuff you've been doing with this time, and the importance of that for everyone to give and share and nurture?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when there are two kinds of philanthropy. One is when there is a tragedy like this, and you need to feed that waitress who had 3 children and shut down her restaurant, and you got to get the food to her, or the clothing or the shelter or whatever it is. That's the immediate thing. And I remember giving $500,000 to the tsunami victims in India. There are the event-driven missions, and those are very important. Make sure that as many people survive this as possible, and we're all better off. And that's the immediate, that's the short term. The long term, I would be very critical of any organization that you give 501c3 money to. I would make sure that they're sustainable and they're providing a service that people are willing to pay for. I mean, the difference between Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts sold cookies and they created $1 billion enterprise, and it was good for everybody. All the Girl Scouts learned how business worked. Boy Scouts had nothing. Boy Scouts went bankrupt. The Girl Scouts had to buy them out. You want to support a nonprofit that can grow and prosper and is sustainable. You do not want to be the one who's throwing that money into the nonprofit over and over and over when they're doing something. They're digging a well in Chad. Well, why dig a well in Chad? Why not give people smartphones in Chad so that they can then look and say, oh, that's how we dig a well. And they can dig their own well. People spend millions of dollars on projects to send people over to Chad to drill a well for one family makes absolutely no sense. That $1 million should have gone into Google or Apple so that they could then get more cell phones into Chad, so the people of Chad could do their own do their own drill their own wells.
So teach them, feed them, right? That same analogy, same metaphor.
Yeah. There's one other thing. When you think about a nonprofit, just think of it as a business, but a different vehicle. And I'll give you an example. Kiva. My dad helped start Kiva. Kiva is the micro lending company. Well, when Kiva got started, they were a for-profit business, and they went out and then they realized they had to be regulated as a bank because they were going to do micro lending. They were going to lend, and being regulated as a bank is ridiculous for any kind of a startup because the banks and the bureaucrats have created so many regulations that no startup could possibly get going. So they said, well, wait, what if we try another vehicle? What if we do a nonprofit? And they said, oh, that's fine. You don't have to be regulated as a bank. So look at nonprofit versus for-profit as just ways of operating a business that can make your life better, that makes the lives of people around the world better. And the only difference is that a for-profit is for the good of the shareholders and the nonprofit is for the good of society. But both should be sustainable. And when you give your money, be super careful and critical and make sure it goes into an organization that looks like it's going to be sustainable. Draper Richards Kaplan, DRK Foundation, was started by my dad, and it is an amazing organization. They started Kiva, they started Room to Read, they started a whole bunch of the hugely successful nonprofits, and they did it by interviewing people and making sure those people were thinking, this is a sustainable business. This is something that will provide good for people around the world over a long period of time, not something that's just like, oh, here's some money. I feel so badly for that one family in Chad. So think, use your brain. Don't let the media drive your brain. Use your own brain.
Tim, thank you so much. Super generous allocation of time and even more generous allocation of wisdom and experience. And we look forward to your art for the next piece, and we'll be as selective as we can be with the selection of charities we had, for example, this time, but take on board the sustainability point you made. And we look forward to catching you again in a few months' time, hopefully for better reasons than COVID.
Terrific. Well, yeah, you got to remind me that I've got a month warning to get that art done.
You'll get the heads up for sure. You bet. That was Tim Draper, live and direct from his home in San Francisco, or I'd say outside San Francisco in the Bay Area. He's Silicon Valley's top investor who spotted early opportunities in Skype, Hotmail, Tesla, SpaceX, numerous other companies, Twitter, and he's also a shareholder in Primfina.com, which is the parent company behind InsureAid, the company that started Art & Co. as an idea to help generate funds towards charities, 7 charities on our roster, helping people suffering from illness, post-COVID treatment, mental health issues like depression, domestic violence, and the disproportionate effect on ethnic minorities. We have a special message now from Monica Kaur. She's been very active in the charity world. I've known her for many years, family, friends. She has a very popular and very powerful medium of songs, which she puts out in something called Kirtan for Causes, which donates funds to charities she operates in Punjab and India. Her videos have been viral and super successful, including 10 million downloads and views for one of her performances. With that, I leave you with a few words from Monica Kaur.
Hi, I'm Monica Kaur, and I personally love it when art and charity combine as a force for good. I'm genuinely excited to tell you about this humanitarian effort by artandco.net, the world's largest online auction valued at a generous £1.65 million. Think Picasso, Dali, Warhol, Koons. Art that is not only timeless, but now serving a higher purpose. Every sale will raise money for causes that help with isolation, domestic violence, and mental health. Art & Co.'s mission is to support charities that are helping the most affected by the coronavirus pandemic. ICU Steps, Khalsa Aid International, Painting Our World in Silver, the Care Workers Charity, Solace Women's Aid, Zateb, and BAME help to protect the most vulnerable. With mental health depression at an all-time high, women and children have been locked up with their abusers, while shelters are now receiving a record number of calls for help. We need your support. Please visit artandco.net and have a look at the collections. There's something for almost every budget. This piece of art that you buy and hang on your wall will have so much more meaning because it can positively impact someone's life. Visit artandco.net to find out more. Thank you.
Powerful words from a powerful singer for a powerful purpose. That was Monica Kaur talking about Art & Co.'s mission and its fundraising towards 7 charities, which is now supported by 46 artists and more than 260 pieces of art, the world's largest online art auction. Our next session was with someone, a dear friend, Katie Wickramasinghe, who is also the head of KTW Communications that specializes in strategy and communications for the art world. Welcome, Katie. Well, great setting we have there for you for London. You look fantastic. Thank you for joining us.
So much for having me. So hi everyone, as Mandeep mentioned, my name's Katie. I'm the founder of KTW on one mission and one mission only: to connect, educate and inspire the culturally curious. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here this evening to be moderating a panel, Art for Good Creativity in the Time of COVID. So as Mandeep mentioned, Art & Co is the world's largest virtual auction with 260 artworks from emerging and established artists from Koons, Warhol, Michaela Yewood-Dan, Scarlett Bowman, as well as numerous others that we're going to be hearing from this evening. Prices start just at £1,000, so please do go online and have a look at the auction items. From £1,000, you can look at artandco.net. So tonight I'm excited that we're going to be joined by a couple of the artists actually in the auction, Kate Dunn and also Hannah Rose Thomas. So to start off with, Mandeep, so his accolades are too long to list, but obviously as a fintech entrepreneur and investor who's raised over $500 million in equity and celebrated your latest fundraise with Premfina via a trip to the Nevada desert, he's also the founder of Art & Co Auction. So I wanted to start, Mandeep, by asking you, how did you come up with this fantastic idea of the auction? And obviously it's so wide-ranging, with causes going back to 7 charities directly linking to disease, depression, domestic violence. It's a huge undertaking.
Thank you, Katie. I wish there was some magic formula that I could point to. It really was organic. I've always loved art, and as you probably heard from the previous interview, been out to Burning Man, where there's a celebration of art and this big desert festival for that moment in time. The entire city's built and then vanishes post this event.
Yeah.
And thinking of us in a historic perspective and in a spiritual perspective, I did not want us to be looking back at this time in history and said, you know what, we sat back and just were passive during a time when half the world's population was locked down and we were facing the biggest global pandemic probably in 3 or 4 generations, if not longer. And that I urge to be active, proactive, empowering people who are actually helping, kind of give the genesis of this. And we're not a charity, so we weren't going to go and help people affected directly. We're not medical staff. So we decided to support charities like ICU Steps, like those who are working with elderly people, alone at home, people who are looking after the issues that come from the very serious and worrying effects of domestic violence, and of course mental health and depression, and the effects on the ethnic minorities were disproportionate. And that basically said, you know, let's work with them, and we wanted to have some kind of catalyst, and we said, who better to approach than the other segment that's been disaffected by this, i.e. freelance workers, and in the fringe of freelance workers are artists who depend on their creative works being displayed in a gallery. Well, guess what? All the galleries are closed, all places are restricted, so where can they sell art? Really nowhere unless there's an online forum. So it was the merging and the convergence of the online world with artists and the charities. We put all our infrastructure, power, and of course, lots of toil by the team that you're very familiar with now. They work copious hours, sleepless nights. This fantastic auction. So here we are.
And an absolute incredible array of art as well, from Picasso to Koons to Dali, and also emerging artists too. So we've actually got a couple of the artists here today. Abstract painter Kate, and I know Hannah is joining us shortly, portrait artist Hannah. So Kate, you've obviously studied at St. Martin's, you've been done various studies in Florence, and I want to kind of kick off really by asking that really important question which Bandeep touched on, which is we've obviously had to move into this hybrid digital world, which when you're a painter in a practical world and with ever so large canvases, you've got some incredible ones in the auction. How have you adapted your practice? I mean, where are you working from and how's that been working for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's the difficulty. At the beginning, my studio closed down pretty much immediately. So I had to move into my spare room, which I covered with dust sheets. I tried to replicate my normal studio practice, which is very large scale painting, and quite quickly realized that that was kind of not going to work in the situation I was in. So I then started drawing, which I don't really draw. I'm much more about the materiality of paint, and found myself using pastels, which I haven't used for a long time. I was also lucky enough to be asked to take part in Guts Gallery's online exhibition at the beginning of COVID, which was an exciting opportunity in a space where you really felt like you were being far removed from the normality way of working. So yeah.
Yeah, and you focus very much on history and future and the clash between. So you have works that kind of look at religious iconography and altarpieces. So how long does it take for you to do one of those works that are in the auction that we're seeing in Art & Co at the moment?
Well, it's quite a variety. They're usually around 180 by 150, so they're quite large scale. Obviously, I have to cut and make the arches out of wood first, prime them, all of that business. And then I would say it's anywhere between 2 days and 2 months to 6 months, because sometimes I'll put them away and then I find myself returning to them.
And Hannah, I wanted to touch on your practice, because obviously you've been working very much in cause-related and also advocacy work, which is very much about kind of Yazidi women who survived ISIS, Nigerian women, survivors of Boko Haram. So a lot of your practice has always been around travel and how you're actually taking in women as icons. So how have you coped with this last few months and being sort of around in London? I can see one of your stunning paintings actually behind you just there as well. How have you been coping in lockdown?
Yeah, so over the last few years, I've had the privilege of working with Syrian refugees in Jordan, Yazidi women who escaped ISIS in Iraqi Kurdistan, Rohingya women in refugee camps in Bangladesh, and Nigerian women who survived Boko Haram. So these projects have involved working with the women on the ground and teaching them how to paint their self-portraits as a way to share their stories with the rest of the world. And I was
in Houses of Parliament, wasn't it?
Yes, they're shown alongside my portraits as a way to share their stories. So a lot of my work is either on the ground in these different countries or advocacy work in Parliament with the paintings as a way to share the women's stories. So I was due to be in India and Nepal for a similar project with survivors of human trafficking, but it's all been postponed. So I've been working on a book, bringing the women's stories together in a different way to bring them in to wider audiences, I hope, and empower their voices to be heard.
Amazing. So you've been keeping yourself busy in terms of new creation and in different ways. And I think, as Bandeep and Tim mentioned in the chat just beforehand, creativity and how it's changed and moved, and artistry has become such an important preoccupation now. And when we're looking at what the government's doing to support creatives. And Bandeep, I wanted to ask you, obviously, in putting the auction together and as a collector, how have you changed the ways in which you're viewing art, you're looking at art, collecting art? I know that I've already just been online looking at prices, and they're incredibly reasonable in your auction. So I'm trying to keep my arms crossed. But how has that changed for you in this period?
I guess when we looked at the art pieces, we were really looking at themes that reflected what people were contemplating at this time. You know, these are tough times. There's 10 million people affected worldwide. Several people, millions of people have been unfortunately killed because of the virus. So there's a reflective, contemplative time for people. Being locked down at home means I also can spend time on things that they may have otherwise chosen not to, or not have had the time to. So things like spirituality, things like the environment, things like health, depression, as well as uplifting things like taking time to do things like art and other hobbies they've not really indulged in that they've thought of. So we looked at artwork that reflected those themes, and it was more on the basis of those philosophical reflections in art rather than per se commercial orientation of art. And of course, finding a way for a digital expression, i.e. having a platform where real art can be displayed digitally and be sold and auctioned, I think is a way for the future whereby you won't be dependent purely on offline events, but you can find new digital channels for art and the sale of art to support artists.
I think that's so important, isn't it? The way that the art world has had to innovate digitally. We've got museums showing shows digitally abroad, etc., and also galleries and exhibitions showing artists' practice as well. So in terms of the actual work in the auction, so Kate, I know we were going to show a few of your works, and I wonder if you could talk us through the meaning of those works and what made you create those.
Sure. Okay.
Painting and layering techniques, which is very time consuming.
Yeah, so this one you see here is Spring's Dust, Twilight's Blossom. This was actually one of the first paintings I made using an arch back in 2018. At the time, I was moving away from portraiture, which I studied in Florence for 4 years. And I started considering how we could use paint as paint instead of it replicating something else. I didn't really understand how to use it outside of paint is flesh or paint is cloth. And I was like, what about paint in its kind of viscid form or its fluid form, or what about color? And so this was one of the last paintings where there's actually a kind of portrait hidden within the work. From there, I moved further and further away from sort of figurative forms and more into abstraction. But here I was still concerning myself with almost quite a classical palette of those sort of earth tones that you experience. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for going through that. And I know having looked at the price point as well, that they're incredibly reasonable until Saturday evening at 7 o'clock. So go and have a look there. And Hannah, I know that you obviously, as we mentioned, a lot of your work has been around humanitarian movements, and you've got a Changemaker Award this year, as well as being nominated for a Forbes 30 under 30. And in terms of the work that you put forward, you're obviously very focused on portraiture. So can you talk to us a little bit about the work that you have in the auction as well?
So yeah, the ones in the auction are not the ones I mentioned earlier, the Yazidi Rohingya Nigerian women, as these are still advocacy exhibitions that are travelling around. But the ones in the auction are from my studies over the last few years, whether the print is called traditional art or portraits. This one you can see is of Yasmin Nagdi, who's a friend of mine in the Royal Ballet. And so portraits of friends, and from study again in the St. Petersburg Imperial Academy of Arts last summer. There's a nude painting from there. So yeah, so it's these are all part of my artistic journey as I've been learning and growing and developing techniques and skills.
And in terms of, obviously, your cause is a huge part of your work. It's integrated and tied very heavily. So which cause was it that really touched you when Art & Co asked you to be part of this auction?
Well, I think being particularly at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were all at home, and you just felt so powerless in the face of all that was going on, and you're aware that there were many people who were risking their lives on the front line, working on the front line. So this auction was just such an amazing way to be able to contribute even in a small way. Which is why I was so keen to be involved, particularly that it addresses both the immediate impact of COVID-19 as well as the long-term impact, such as domestic violence or mental health. So these are issues that are really key to my work as well. So they resonated very strongly.
And I think that brings us quite neatly onto, Bandeep, obviously in terms of the bigger picture here, we touched on the idea that a lot of the charitable initiatives, those that are actually getting the recipients of this auction, are ones which are actually long-term effects that we're going to see in COVID. And a lot of people have been talking about the immediacy, but there is a lot of obviously impact on creativity, artistry, how we create, how we view arts and culture. So what would you say you've taken from a positive from all of this, obviously a hugely traumatic time in many ways for many people, for businesses, individuals. So both individually, what's been your positive experience, and what would you say in kind of the world around us? What can we take forward that will affect the way we create and make?
So I say two things. One is to get to know and meet and make friends with some fabulous people. Hannah has now become a friend, if I can call it that, Hannah. We've got some other work done from her. She uses these fantastic medieval techniques, and she now is going through 12 books that I gave her on Indian miniature art. So we've made some fantastic friendships out of that. And this is what art's about. It's about uniting people. So to me, that's one of our biggest takeaways. It's not just what you on a screen, it's real world connections with real world outputs. The second thing I'd say is the price being paid is not just the price for the art that you're seeing for the artists. The artists have been very generous and very kind in discounting their work to say, we want to price it such that we get some of it unless they've donated for free, which has also happened. And from that price being paid by the buyers, is a proportion, typically at least half, if not more, that's going to all these 7 charities. The only time you can basically pay for one thing that goes to both artists and 7 registered charities out there. So to us, that's, a very tangible way of creating a simple way of people contributing to society and charities. It's also, and we also find that people are attracted by the fact that there is something tangible to take out from this, right? So it's not just giving, which is fine and good in itself, but you can actually, as a company, showcase a piece of art in your hallways or your boardrooms and say, we were active, we were visible, and here's a proof point for what we did to support 7 charities and artists. To me, that's a huge takeaway from this. And I hope we can build upon this for the future.
Yeah, I think it gives a real sense of place. And I think that as well, giving back to the artists and ensuring that they are actually having some sort of takeaway from this is absolutely key. So if you haven't seen the auction, please do go to artandco.net. As I mentioned, over 260 works. And quick final question. So Kate, what next for you? What can we look out for, and what positives have you taken from this experience?
I think taken from this experience as an individual, it's allowed me to slow down a lot with my work and my practice. I'm usually quite prolific, making several large-scale paintings in a week or 2 weeks, potentially starting. Obviously, this has allowed me to take a step back and reevaluate my practice and how I work. I think collectively and in a societal aspect, it's allowed us to take responsibility for each other, care for each other, and through that, I'm also taking part in a sale coming up in early July through Purse Lane Art, which will be a percentage of the money made will be going to the Stephen Lawrence Trust in support of the Black Lives Matter UK movement.
Amazing. Well, wishing you so much luck with that. And Hannah, just to close in terms of what would you say from your own work, whether how you would like to see the next steps and what your positives would be?
Well, I think this global pandemic has revealed so many examples all over the world of creativity and generous altruism and grassroots organising, which has been quite incredible and very inspiring to see. And also I do believe, and there are many examples in history of how pandemics have gone hand in hand with creativity, such as Fra Angelico was painting during the time of the Black Death. So you never know what may emerge out of this difficult time.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing your books as well. It sounds like you've got some really exciting plans afoot and possible collaborations around your bigger cause collection. So Bandeep, congratulations on the auction, and thank you, Hannah, and also Kate for joining this panel talk. And I think what's really important to say is that whether you're an art collector, both emerging or just starting, I know that there is something for everyone in this auction. I've been going through it myself, and there's some incredible artworks of all kind of mediums. So do go on and take a look. As we mentioned, the funds will be going to 7 frontline causes as well as a number of freelance individuals. So please do go and support, and thank you so much for watching this evening.
Thank you, Katie. That was brilliant and great conversation with two phenomenal artists out there as well. Our next segment is with Sri Srinivasan hosting a panel on the perhaps more ugly side of COVID, which is also largely invisible. We see all the images of people dying in hospitals and people being sick. What we don't see is the incredible spike in domestic abuse and violence, because conversely, while the incidents have gone up, the reporting has gone down because victims are afraid of complaining against their perpetrators when they're locked in the same home. We have two phenomenal guests here for that, who Sri will be interviewing Evelina Chueva, who runs an app against domestic violence, and Lorraine, who is using art also as therapy. But I don't want to steal Sri's thunder. Sri, over to you and our two guests in Sofia.
Thanks so much, Bandeep, and congratulations on launching this incredible initiative. You're going to be helping so many people around the world. And we also learned a lot about art in the process. And it was great to hear you and Tim. He was amazing. How do you feel so far?
So far, great. You know, like people ask me, what do you want to get out of this? Well, I really want to get visibility for what people are doing at the front line with charities. And we're glad to have one of the charity representatives, the founder here, as well as the artists. It's not necessarily about the money, although that is what matters in terms of tangible delivery to the charities. But it's really about saying, you know, if you have an idea, this was simply an idea at the end of March, and look at where we are today. Things can happen if you want it to happen and you believe in them.
And remind us about the auction and when it ends. And I hear that you're going to buy up everything if you don't meet the prices you want. Is that true?
This line's really bad. I can't hear you very well. But I think what you were saying is, when is the auction ending, and where can people get some really good steals? Because we have a lot of emerging aspirational artists who will undoubtedly be much more popular in the time ahead. So this is the time to get some really good, potentially undervalued art, which will become much more valuable in time, not to mention the benefit of all the causes. It's artandco.net, artandco.net. And you'll see fabulous artwork there, 260 pieces plus from 46 artists. And it's a simple buying process. And we have Q&A as well as feedback forums if people have any further questions. Remember, all of this goes to charities. We're not doing this for money. We're certainly not making money. But that's not the point. It's to help those charities out there and help the victims.
Thank you, Bandeep. And we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We have two amazing speakers who are going to help us understand this other side of COVID. And we're going to meet both Evelina and Lorraine. Lorraine's the artist. Evelina is doing some incredible work around helping people who are suffering from domestic violence at this time. Evelina, everything we know says that more people are suffering from domestic violence during the pandemic than ever before. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Hi, Suri. First of all, thank you for having me. Unfortunately, the statistics are really bad. During this lockdown, many victims are forced to stay with their abusers, which is making the numbers higher and higher. But what my app does is trying to help these victims and also children. It has all the useful information which is needed, as well as hotlines. We have dedicated teams, and we are trying to do the best to kind of reduce these numbers and to really help.
And tell us how the app works, and what is the app? How can people find it? Where is it available?
Right now it's available in Bulgaria, which is my home country, but we're bringing it soon to India and Spain and England. The app works for Android and iOS. It's absolutely free to download from App Store and Google Play. It has, as I said, all the useful information. It has panic buttons. It also has the localization button, which is giving you the possibility to for the teams to see where you are and to send you police or whoever is needed. It also includes all the charities and NGOs which are working in the country. 13 at the moment, and yeah, it just kind of collects everything which is already there in the market and which the government is providing into one product, which I believe is making the process of finding and reaching help much easier and faster.
And tell us how people can find it. If they're in Bulgaria, they can already find it. If they're in India,
Yes.
places, it's coming.
So right now it's working, yes. Right now it's working in Bulgaria. It's working in both English and Bulgarian language. They should just type Zateb, Z-A-T-E-B, which means for you, in App Store or Google Play, and they can download it absolutely free.
How did you decide that this is something you need to do, you want to give to the world?
Well, after researching the statistics in my country and seeing some of my friends and people I know going through this hard thing, if I may say, I thought that there is not enough out there. It's not easy enough to find the help which they need, and it's not optimized. So I thought we live in a world where technology is number one thing. We do all kind of things through technology. So I thought, why not include it into this and try to make everything easier and collect all the resources out there into one thing, which can work on your smartphone or tablet. So that's how I came up. I first thought about platform, but then I thought, okay, everyone is using smartphones right now. So how easier than that can be if you just have it on your phone and whenever you need it, you just use it.
Thank you. And everyone, please check out, if you're in Bulgaria, you know the website that you can find it on, Zateb. They can search for that. And just really congratulations for helping so many people with this. Let's talk to the artist Lorraine, who is with us. Hello, Lorraine.
Hello.
How are you? Tell us.
Very good.
Tell us about your interest in this auction. Why did you decide to participate? And talk a little bit about your own work and how it's connected to all of this.
Okay, so firstly, I wanted to take part of this auction because of Zateb. I know Eva and her good cause. I wanted to help more women and children find out about this app so they can find their safe place. So because I had similar experience of being abused, and firstly, when this happened, I was feeling very ashamed to share my darkest experience. So I was like scared and depressed, and I needed support from someone, but I stayed strong and I moved on. So I wanted to share to my girls in my social media that application like this exists, and that can help them and they can find protection and that they're not alone. With my personal example, I think that I show them that they can feel safe in their own home. And would you like to know about my art as therapy?
Yes, please. We'd love to. Please talk about that.
So yeah, as a human being in the modern world, I know that our environment can be very stressful and affect my physical and mental state. So I decided to be part of a healthier and peaceful way of living by using specific colors that have different wavelengths and vibrational frequencies that affect our mood, cells, and body chemicals differently. I created 33 paintings and I donated some of them to hospitals so I can help people explore emotion, develop self-awareness, cope with stress, depression, and mental disorders. Each painting I created is prepared. Firstly, I prepare myself with yoga or meditation. And then when I start painting, I put specific classic music on So the essential part of the healing energies that are mixed with the vibration of the artwork. As an artist, I have to understand the symbolism of colors is so important, and one can select different colors in order to convey a particular message and trigger a certain feeling in the viewer. And as you can see, the divine portal is a combination of whole 7 chakras that just by observing the painting, you can feel better, and you can feel your chakras open, and you can feel relief just by seeing these colorful forms.
Let's go to the top and look at the painting again. And this is one of the paintings that is available on sale, right? And on the auction. And you can see this here. What is this painting called?
This is called equality.
Quality.
Yes, it represents the unity of whole 4 nations, the 4 colors, because I really want all of us to work as one mind, one body, one soul, so we can create a better world for our future, like the wall of love. This creates unity in between the 4 colors.
Thank you. And that was amazing to see that in action. Let's go to Evelina before we bring this session to a close. Evelina, can you talk a little bit about the value of having technology like you have built and what it means for the women of Bulgaria and eventually the women of the world?
Well, technology, as I said, is making everything much easier, and I believe what you guys did is amazing. I really want to thank you for including all of these charities, also Zatep, and such great artists into one place, and making it easier for people also to find not only great art, but to kind of become part of resolving social issues, not only domestic violence, but all the other charities and the causes they're behind. So I believe it's going to be very, very successful. And one more time, I really want to thank you for making us part of it.
Thank you. And what is the timeline again? And remind us how we can find it. And what is your timeline for going beyond Bulgaria?
The timeline, well, this year we should be live in India, and we're planning, as I said, Spain and England soon. So I hope this year and next year you are going to be able to find us in all these 3 places. And currently it's working in Bulgarian, both English and Bulgarian language. And yeah.
Okay. And let me ask Lorraine one last question. What is your message to anyone who's watching now, who is suffering from domestic violence at this moment and feels helpless? What is your message to them?
My message is to look for help and stay strong and believe that there is a fair world where justice and goodness can be part of every single person. And if you feel hopeless, don't worry, I felt that way also, but now I'm feeling better than ever. I feel strong, I feel supported, and I'm happy to be part of such an amazing organization. Just believe that goodness exists in every person, and believe that there is better and better people to meet in our life.
Well, thank you very much to both Lorraine and Evelina. We're very grateful to you. Thank you so much, and good luck in your endeavors. And we want to see how those paintings do in the auction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
So Bandeep, that was amazing, and I learned a lot. I know you did too, and it's great how you pulled all of these people together for the show. We're about to end. We're going to show the website so that people can get a sense of it. So you can talk us through the website, remind us where we go, what we see, etc.
Sri, thank you so much. This was such a phenomenal show. I think could not have asked for anything better. It just shows the power of art uniting people, whether in San Francisco or Sofia. It shows the power of giving, because we are giving this to artists, but also 7 charities out there. And to get this phenomenal support, please take it all the way through. A deal's never done till it's closed. The closing, of course, is 7 p.m. Saturday. It's your day of leisure, so you have plenty of time to browse through it. Look at them. And for those of you living in the UK, it's a rainy day, so nothing better to do outside. So please look at the art, support the artists, support the charities. COVID's not gone away. It's likely to be here with us for a long time. And don't forget, aside from the immediate impact, there's other hidden impacts and consequences, such as illnesses, such as the scourge of domestic violence, such as the upsetting of mental health with loneliness and depression, and of course the disproportionate number of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic people in the UK and elsewhere that have been affected by this pandemic. So please go out there, show your generosity, buy the art, hold it proud for your kids, for generations to come, to show what you did during this historic, tragic time in humankind, that you can then say, I was part of a solution. I was part of a answer to what is tragic and what is being deeply politicized. This is uniting, it's not dividing. This is something that will make us all proud, and most of all, it'll help people who are suffering, and nothing can be nobler than that. I would like to give a big shout out of thanks to all the people who supported and made this happen. Nothing happens without a phenomenal amount of teamwork, incredible sweat and tears, unfortunately, sometimes, to make this happen. So it's a long list. I'm gonna have to read this out, but a special big thanks to Tim Draper for, of course, making our keynote and being so generous with his time and insights and openness about the way things are, and his contribution to the way the world should be in the future with art and tokenization, and of course, the world of philanthropy and charities. A big round of applause for Claudia Gorshitska, who is based in our Warsaw office, who took command of this entire operation from the start and made this a phenomenal success. And hats off to her for just really pulling through, working day and night, weekends, days, nights, weekdays, weekends were all blurred into one long continuum from the end of March. So thank you for that. My figurative hat or figurative turban off. Also thanks to Sri yourself for being very insightful and very supportive, and bringing years of wisdom and knowledge from being not only my old professor from Columbia, but also the former chief digital officer at the Museum of Modern Art in New York and the city of New York itself. Your experience and value in putting this together is not, you can't quantify it. It's priceless. And I'm going to run through the rest of them, but by all means, this is no particular order. So Katie Wickramasinghe, the fellow host for this panel, of course, this session, along with yourself, Sri. Our artists who were there, Kate Dunn, Hannah Rose Thomas, and Lorraine. Our charities represented through Evelina Chueva and Zateb, as well as Monica with her contribution on the website with her audio piece, as well as, of course, her speech here to show the power of music and not just art, but all forms of media that unite people. Our very heroic staff back in the office, including Karina Efremova, Megan Punter, Nij Saha with his phenomenal tech team, including Mihail, Arik, Teddy or Theodora, and a whole bunch of advisors and consultants to the process, including Karina Komarnitska. Just interesting here, Lucy von Guth, who also was really helpful for getting a lot of the artists there, including people like Hannah Rose Thomas, who's also become a friend. So thank you for that, Lucy. Jessica Patterson for doing a phenomenal job on the PR and media coverage. We've got a phenomenal amount of media coverage from the day zero, in fact, because we were planning to go out live with this auction a few days later than we actually did, because she got an incredible slot with the BBC Radio World Service. So we kind of fast forwarded and moved up our launch date by a few days. and that's really helped us get the kind of coverage we're seeing today. So thank you, Jessica. Thank you to Anna Jojoma, my assistant in the office, who's been phenomenal at managing all the logistics. Our great web designers, Jack Archer and Ross Davidson from Fable & Co. You can see the name Art & Co. kind of borrowing a bit from Fable & Co. And of course, support staff for other people, including Katie with Anna Clark in Katie's office, who's been phenomenal and also very helpful putting the artwork together, the artists together. And some friends who sit across the world in Canada, Cheryl Singh and Elon Tan, who helped us bring some of the international artists and dimension to it and have been a constant source of support for us. If I've missed anybody, 1,000 apologies, but hopefully I covered everyone there. And once again, thank you so much. Make sure you buy art. This is not the end, of course. This is just the beginning of the last phase towards an end. We have another 48 hours and 34 minutes to go, if I got my math right, to make sure, actually there it says 33 minutes on the clock on our site to drive this to a close and make a phenomenal fundraiser. I'd encourage people also in the insurance industry, because we play in the insurance world, and to make sure that we have contributions from the insurance industry, because only 3% of global disasters today are covered by insurance. We've seen some businesses complain about not being able to have themselves covered during this time. Without going into the politics of it, this is, regardless of policy coverage, this is a time for helping out communities and businesses and individuals who've suffered. And if it's not through a policy, well, it can be through charity. So please give, donate if you don't want to buy art. There's a donate button on our website. You can just donate whatever you want, £2, £200, £2,000, £200,000. And all the charities are registered. So if there's any tax benefit to you giving money, you will get it directly from those charities, and you can use them for your own accounting purposes. Everything we do in terms of receipt of funds, distribution of funds to artists, as well as the charities, will be completely transparent and recorded on the blockchain. We thank our partners at LuxTag, who use the NEM protocol to put all the artwork that's sold with proof of provenance, i.e. ownership, on the blockchain, so you can show that it was a legitimate piece of art, what attributes it has, what techniques were used, and if it changes ownership in time, it'll be recorded. And of course, all the funds received by the charities and artists will also be recorded. This is being done by us purely to help the artists and the charities, and we want to make sure that we get all your support to make this phenomenal success, just the way as it's been so far to date, since the end of March to today, with this phenomenal live show that Sri, you and your team helped us put together. So thank you for that again. That's great, guys. artandco.net. Go there, log in, check out the site, and of course, donate, buy, contribute. Thank you very much with my social distance. Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Salam. Thank you.